Right, so I was going to go over, basically I'm going to talk until I run out of time, but pack fitting was going to be number one. I was going to go over, and I was going to go over, what's that?
Hold on, Aaron.
Damn it. So I was going to go over pack fitting initially, and then go over food and nutrition. When we get through food and nutrition, if I've got any more time, I was going to go over footwear, insoles, socks, things like that, and then answer pretty much whatever other questions you guys have. As far as packs and pack fitting, I get the biggest question we get at Kifaru, and this goes for any pack, is really what pack's the right size. You know, what size pack do I need? Like, you will get a guy that's 6'8" that wants a day pack, and he'll order a pack that size-wise, 2,200 cubic inches, is a day pack. But if a guy is 6'8", it is actually kind of a fanny pack, because he's just too damn big. The pack will not fit him. And so what a pack would be for Braden, for example, Braden, what are you, 5'7", 5'8"? Okay, so if Braden, all things being equal in the pack size, meaning 2,200 cubic inches, since Braden is relatively short with a normal inseam, Braden's got a torso that's about 16 inches. So a day pack with 22-inch stays, a day pack will fit Braden. But if you take a guy like Matt, where you at? Stand up, Matt. Everybody, now look at Matt. Braden, stand up. It is not the same. They're way different in size. And so where guys get confused is the size of the pack compared to the size of the frame of the pack. And when all that boils down to in the end is your torso length. So what I'm getting at here is, if you want a day pack that's a heavy load hauler, you really aren't having, that's not a day pack. You have a load hauling pack, because the frame height is going to be taller for it to allow to adjust, put the weight on your hip bones. And I'll go over that now. Let's see, who went? Kaylee, come here. Look at you. It's my daughter. So we're going to go over torso with my daughter. Turn around. So the torso height is basically the top of the iliac crest if you draw a circle all the way around. And then you take a vertical line and go straight up to the C7 vertebrae, which is this the pointy one sticking out when you bring your neck forward. That's your torso length. Go ahead and sit back. When you go to REI, they have a little machine thing that they stick on you that's like a pack and it's adjustable. I really don't know why they use that, because it is what it is. Top of your hips to your C7 vertebrae. What that means, like the way that, like Kifaru International, the way that we measure it, because most people screw that measurement up, especially if you're single and you're a man and you have no friends, you cannot really take the tape measure and measure it yourself. So if I have your height and your inseam, meaning your pant length, that also gives me your torso length. That's how we do it. What that all boils down to is, if you take Braden, who has got a 16-inch torso, Matt, what's yours? 23? Yeah, all right, Matt's 21, 22. Matt has a taller torso. So if you put a 26-inch frame on Braden, it's going to be like at the top of his head. Where you put it on Matt, it's going to be at the bottom of his ears. Now, and if I see too many squirrels and I jump around too much, don't be afraid to throw something at me and tell me to go back. But what we're wanting here is, when you put the pack on, I'll throw one on real quick. Actually, Braden, why don't you hop up here? Frank, get up here. So what that is a 23-inch tall internal frame. And then this big guy, and since Colton and I, Frank and I all wear the same stuff. So what we're wanting now, I'm fat and Braden is not, so that belt might not fit him. But right here, what we're looking for is the load lifter angle. And that's key, or that's vital to allowing the suspension or the pack, as you pull on this, you get a gap back here. So the load lifter is not really lifting anything. You'll hear some people talk about it lifts the load. It doesn't lift the load. It lifts this portion of the shoulder strap off of your shoulder. When there's heavy weight in the pack, that now transfers it to your hip bone. So if this load lifter angle or this pack is below your shoulders, it isn't lifting anything. It's not lifting up your shoulder strap. It's become then a load stabilizer. And what happens there is when you get that, Frank answers more phone calls than I do, but we get a lot of phone calls of, I finally killed an elk last year. I was using brand X and it killed me. And it was horrible and I never want to do it again. Well, it's not that the pack is a poor quality. It's the pack that they were using doesn't fit them. Everly Stock is a great example. They make a very durable, very affordable pack. It is not a load hauling pack, and what ends up happening, undo the buckle, the belt, it's way down here, and so all of this is on your shoulder, so when you tighten this, you don't get a gap. When you don't get that gap, that weight doesn't transfer down to your hip bones, you have shoulder fatigue, and your hip bones can carry, they fatigue exponentially. It takes them exponentially longer to fatigue than your shoulders do. So who all has packed out an elk in here? Okay, how many of those guys when you were done couldn't function normally the next day because your shoulders were hurting? Okay, that's what that's from. It's not that the pack is a bad pack, it's just it's not correctly fitted. Go ahead and pop this one off. Have a seat for a sec. Frank, come here. So Frank, he's got an expedition type pack. This is a big bastard, right? So this is 3,200 cubic inches, and this would be considered a large day pack or like a bivy pack, a 1 to 2 nighter, which in Braden's case, it fits, it's great, 65 to 75 pounds. He can still transfer the weight to his hip bone because he had maybe a 20-degree angle. Where with Matt, he's screwed out of the gate. He can't carry a sandwich in this thing, and it's all on his shoulders. Now, with Frank's got about a 19-inch torso. We've got the load lifter at the highest angle. You can adjust them on the Kifaru. Huge shoulder lift. I can fit my hand in there, and I've got room for days. The reason why this angle is a little bit better when it's higher is right now there's just a bunch of sleeping bags in this thing. If I throw 120 pounds in there, gravity is working against you, and it's pulling this thing down, and no matter how good the pack is you're using, you can't beat gravity, but you can trick gravity a little bit. So as this sags a little bit, you still have enough room here in the load lifter angle to actually get some function out of your shoulder straps or your load lifters to lift these up and transfer it to your hip bones. So in the case of with our suspensions, and actually in this case we're the only ones that do this, you can day hunt, you can actually pop this load lifter off here, and you can attach it down here. Because when you're day hunting, you don't need a huge functional suspension, and then that keeps it sucked up tighter to your back. Or if you're doing train to hunt, you don't want it flopping around when you're day hunting. You want it to be sucked up tight to your back, just enough to lift it off your shoulders to where it's not comfortable. So you can hook this here to one of these tab loops in here and change the angle of the actual load lifter. What, like best case scenario, or what is, I guess not best case, textbook is, you want 65 to 70% of the weight on your hip bones. Go ahead and pop that off if you want. Meaning, if you got 100 pounds, you want 65 pounds on your hip bones. In my case, I run closer to 80 to 90% on my hip bones. One of the things we've noticed, phone call wise, if somebody's gotten really used to running like an Alice pack or something that doesn't have a functional suspension, they'll call and be like, my butt cheeks are burning, like my butt hurts, it's killing me. Well, at first we have to decipher if they mean, are they getting chafing from our belt? Is it actually rubbing them? Well, what it is when you curl your biceps, in your biceps you get that burn in your biceps, the pump. Their hips aren't used to carrying that weight, and it's their ass cheek balling up because the hip belt's actually doing its job. And that goes for other packs with like Stone Glacier, Exo, packs like that where they do have kind of a functional suspension. Now, as you kind of break down the suspension, when you go, you have the load lifters. And I think, does anybody have any questions on the load lifters, how that works? Can you get there? Okay. Once you figure out the load lifter and figure out the frame height, the longer your torso is, the taller a frame height you need. You go to the belt, and in our case, we have a 3-piece belt. Can everybody see that? A 3-piece belt means 1, 2, 3. So you got, this part goes on your hips, this goes on your back. This is a torso pad, or excuse me, a lumbar pad. That's a 3-piece belt. Then you have a full wrap belt. Who in here has a Stone Glacier? Anybody? Nobody? All right, good. Just kidding. So with a Stone Glacier, it is a full wrap belt, meaning this piece here wraps all the way around you. It is one piece. Now it's debatable or arguable. You know, it is in the industry. We all talk shit about each other. What is better? The best thing to do is try. I mean, we don't. It's easy for us to just throw 80 pounds in a pack and have you guys put it on and try it, and that kind of it figures itself out. But in some cases, Yeti Dave is a buddy of ours. Yeti Dave's got some back problems, and I don't know that we'll ever get a pack to fit Yeti Dave, but we're trying, and it seems he likes the full wrap belt more. So we just put a thinner lumbar pad in ours and made it kind of into a mock lumbar pad, or mock 3-piece belt. Now, as you can see, that's a big honking lumbar pad. It's huge. So what this is for is you tighten up the belt. Even in my case, I don't have much of a butt, but even in my case, Braden, get back over there. Braden's got a butt.
No.
Jeremy, you've got a butt. Come on up.
Jeremy's got one, dude.
I don't have a shell.
So right here, you've got the curvature of the back. So you can't back him up against the wall where you guys can see it, but that's against his butt, that's against his back. He's got a hole there. It's a huge hole. Okay, so if you've got this giant curvature, all right, you're good. If you got that giant curvature and you've put a straight frame up against your back, if you can imagine, straight frame up against the back. This is touching the shoulders up here, and this is touching your butt, right? Roughly. Not your butt, but your lumbar region. As you pull this, right, you're pulling your load lifter. If this frame does not have a curve, I mean, what happens? It does this, and then it fails, and it sags, and you sag like a homie on the street, and your pants are falling down. It happens with ours too. I mean, we have a giant lumbar pad to help yank your pants down. But when you have a straight frame, as you pull that load lifter up high, it hits this portion of your shoulder, you know, and then there you have it. It just pulls away from your butt. As it pulls away from your butt, it sags, and it sags. You start carrying all the weight on your shoulders. Now this isn't doctrine, basically. There are some cases where a straight frame. Jeremy, do you run a straight frame? Jeremy's butt is so big, he can get away with running a straight frame. Literally, it is that big. Now, in most cases, it would dictate that he needs more of a curvature. See that curve here on the bottom of our frame? Anybody see that kind of? So that's where we curve for the gap, like in his back. That's where it curves. This fills up some of that gap, and then this curves throughout all the way up to basically cheat the system when you pull on those load lifters. It's also for comfort too. If it's just a straight frame, it's pressure the whole way, you know, all continuous throughout your whole back. Well, with this lumbar pad, basically everything's working in continuity together. Meaning, once you get the belt tight, the lumbar pad's in place, you've tightened the lumbar, or you've tightened the belt, you keep these loose, tighten your shoulder straps, then you pull these, that lifts the shoulder strap up off your shoulder. At that point, you're doing 65 to 70% on your hip bones, the rest is on your shoulders, and you're good to go. Now, what I really like is, well, I don't like it, I get a kick out of it, is you see Facebook posts and you see even sales ads, the most comfortable pack in the world, and you see Corey Jacobson is known for this with some of his sales ads. You see the top of the frame well below the shoulder straps, and then you see it says comfortable. Well, he's lying, because it is all on your shoulders. That doesn't mean that pack he's wearing is not capable of that. In Corey's case, the pack he is using is capable of that. He's using an EXO. For most cases, for most torso lengths, it is capable of a functional suspension. But when you throw that weight on there, if you don't tighten up the hip belt, you don't do everything correctly, it is just going to sag, and it's just hit the button. In some cases, if you if your body is just, and that's Matt, you have one of the longest torsos. How tall are you?
6'5".
And then what's your inseam?
33.
So Matt has the inseam of a guy that's 5'10", but he's 6'5", so his torso is super long. In some cases, if you get a guy that's 6'8", but he has a 38-inch inseam, he really doesn't need, even though he's like Andre the Giant or Big Bird, he doesn't have that long of a torso, so he really doesn't need that tall of a frame. Same can be said, I've got some buddies that they're 5'10", they've got a 34, 35-inch inseam. They can hike up a storm, but they have a torso length of a child. Their back is only like that tall. So it doesn't have to just do with height, it's total combined. And so as you kind of go along with finding the quest for your favoriteest pack in the whole wide world, the thing you need to look at is your torso length. That is key. Once you find your torso length, you need to find how tall the potential pack, the pack you're potentially looking at, how tall that frame is. If you have a 21-inch torso and that frame is 24 inches tall, just kick it out of the equation, because it's not, unless you never kill anything, it's not going to be very comfortable when you do. The next thing you need to look at is if you want a full wrap belt or a 3-piece belt. In the case I explained it, this is a 3-piece or a full wrap. Just try them on if you can. The next thing you need to look at, potentially anyway, is straight frame or curved frame. If you have a relatively curved back, which I have one of the flattest backs on the planet, if you have a relatively curved back and you put a straight frame on there, for the most part, you are going to lose some function in your suspension, just for the simple fact you pull on something straight, it's going to cantilever away from your butt. Those are the big things you need to look for in a suspension system. That covers the nuts and bolts of it, I guess. Do we have any questions on anything? And you're not going to hurt my feelings, even though I work for Kifaru. If you have questions on your pack, getting it to fit, by all means, ask away.
Aaron, do you suggest that people get fitted for a back when they're fit with weight in it?
What's that?
Do they fit it with weight in it?
Yeah, I would. You definitely, when you're trying on a pack, even at REI, wherever you go, you want to put 25, 30 pounds in that pack to try it on. And I used to piss REI off really bad because I would put in like 100 to try them out. But the reality of it is almost every pack that you try on is comfortable with 45 pounds. Even a duffel bag with shoulder straps is comfortable with 45 pounds. Where the rubber really starts to meet the road is 65 to 80. Once you hit that 65 to 80 mark, comfort starts swirling down the crapper real quick, and that's because of the load lifter angles, the 3-piece or full wrap belt, all of those different things come into play just because gravity, right? Gravity's working against you. Once gravity kicks in, you're in trouble. In the case like with Colton here and I last year, when we packed his bull out, that was the heaviest pack out I had for the longest distance, which was, I think we both had, I think you had 190. These are weighed weights, so we're not lying. He had 190, he had 180, and that was 8 miles out, and we weighed them when we got to the truck. It was bad. I mean, it was rough, and I could only carry the weight on my hips for maybe a half a mile, and my hips just could not take it. And I would drop it to my shoulders, and I could make it a quarter mile, and then I would jack it back on my hips, but the pack allowed me to do that. And so we went hunting 2 days later. 2 days later we went hunting. We were able to, we had a little bit of chafing on the hips and my knees hurt, but we could do it. If you were to do that with a pack that doesn't have a functional suspension, above and beyond compressing your spine and your knees and everything else, just straight out your shoulders, you just won't be able to draw your bow. You'll have muscle knots. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced that. Either one.
Then for the taller guys, pretty much just give up on smaller packs.
If you want, unless you want to strap a small pack on a big frame, yeah. And we we get pissed off customers, especially Canadians. I don't know what it is with Canadians, but man, it is very difficult to get them to understand. If you got a 22-inch torso, you're not going to be rolling in a 2,200 cubic inch pack and have it as a functional suspension. It'll hold any amount of weight you want it to. It's not going to break, but you're screwed. You're going to have to run a 26-inch frame. And what we tried to start to do is be able to put like the 22 mag, some of the smaller packs. We've really realized, since we do have such a tall frame, well, we had Frank, quit screwing around. How many we ordered 28-inch frames. What, we sold 6 of those? Yeah. So six 28-inch frames. A 28-inch frame is you saw this on Frank. Frank's not a tiny guy. It's 2 inches taller than this. There's that many guys, and we haven't even told people we have them, because we actually don't. They're getting built, but we have once people have found out about what we're talking about, you can just strap a little bag on a big frame, and you basically have a day pack. We get guys that are 6'10", you guys that play for the different basketball teams, just because they've been literally in pain forever carrying a day pack, like a fanny pack. Because you get a guy that's 6'10", and he runs this, you'll look like that bear on that freaking, whatever that movie is, Open Season. It'll be riding this up to here on him, just because his torso is so tall.
Talk a little bit about stays. I recently purchased a Kifaru, and it had arrow stays, but Frank swapped them out for the composite stays. Difference on one versus the other?
The difference stays with us. Basically, we in our ultralight frame, it's just 2 arrows. Literally, there's stay pockets in the back of the frame. You can't see it, but they're running. They're running right up here is where our stays go. That's what gives the rigidity to the HDPE sheet. In our ultralight frame, it's just 2 arrows. The only reason why we did that, is because of the industry today. Stone Glacier, and Kurt's a great guy, I get along with him. They went crazy lightweight. Everybody is worried about weight, even though, at the sheep show, what's the lightest pack you got? Not what's the most comfortable, not what's the most durable. It is what is the lightest pack you have. That is the #1 question. I'll say, we have this ultralight frame. It's 4.5 ounces lighter than this other frame, but it's gonna suck. So don't buy it. And they're like, well, I say 4.5 ounces. I'm like, yes, but it will be horribly uncomfortable. And they'll buy it anyway because it's the lightest. We only did that basically to keep up with the Joneses in the weight category. In some cases, Jeremy being 1 in a million, the arrow stays work. Some cases, guys don't carry heavy weight, and it's a moot point. It doesn't matter if you're not carrying heavy weight. In other cases, guys will pull out the arrows. They'll go, fly fishing, scouting, everything else. And when they go to hunt, they'll pull the arrows out and they'll put the curved stays in. Now, in our case, we have aluminum, composite, and then ultralight, which is arrows. The aluminum is, I think it's T7071 or 6061 aluminum. It's just a high-grade aluminum. The composite is carbon and Brazilian ironwood laminated together. It's basically like a snowboard or a bow limb. And that's why those things are basically unbreakable. The Brazilian ironwood is, I think is what it is. You can deadlift that stay and it won't snap in half. As far as the curvature goes, with our frame, the stays that we have, they fit most back profiles, meaning whether you have a really wavy back or you have a somewhat flat back like myself, fits 99% of the people. When it doesn't fit those guys, we have aluminum stays, and those, like I said, they're aluminum, they can be bent. Usually it's like a big bodybuilder dude, or a guy that you can put like 2 fists behind his back would be the case where we need to use aluminum stays to like do some crazy curvature. I think that pretty much covers it.
So you don't want much space between the frame and the back.
You don't want a whole lot. And that depends on the person. My buddy has he sticks this bugle back there, so he's got a huge gap and he loves his. But you don't want a ton of space. Just more or less, it is extending that weight off of your back. So at the root of it, it's not a good thing. but you don't want so much pressure that it's crushing you either. If you can put your hand back there, it's fine. But in some cases, we get guys that come in and you can literally stick like up to my bicep behind there, and that's probably not good. Any other questions on pack fitting? No? All right. I saw a couple guys brought packs in. You brought yours in. Did you just want me to check that? See
Yeah,
if it fits?
good.
Why don't you grab that and let's do that where everybody can watch.
Do you make different size lumbar pads?
Yeah, we can do some like maintenance by OP2 and get out a cutting knife and do some really crafty ones. It's all we make it over there, so we can kind of manufacture just about anything. In most cases, though, guys that get a skinnier one, almost every one of them goes back to a bigger one. It's just you're not. I mean, when I first put one on, I'm like, what the hell is this giant lump in my back? This is horrible. And then 3 weeks later, I wanted it. So the
They compress quite a bit. Over time, they'll compress.
But your standard is the large one?
for the duplex, for the hunting frames, yeah, there's a large one. But even that, you can cut it in half at home. You're not like doing it. So the first thing when I go to fit a guy is, are you 5'10", 5'11"? Okay. I'm gonna want him to put a belt on, which he did, and then suck that thing up a little bit tighter. Okay. And I want to make sure this is basically centered. The belt is centered in the boniest part of his hip bone, which it looks like it is. Don't get too touchy-feely. So now this is pretty loose, so I want to make sure to loosen these load lifters, and I want him to tighten the shoulder strap to where they're comfortable to him. Okay, so we've got good curvature here, which is what we want. We've got a decent load lifter angle here, and he's got more to go. This is about, honestly, to me, this is about the perfect angle you want for all-around general use until you just go full crazy and you got 100 pounds in your back.
You got to train to hunt mode.
Yeah, that's train down mode, exactly. Turn around, go forward. Now we've got these 3-bar sliders here. At a glance, they look too high. You want these in line with your clavicle. Now this is textbook, this is not gospel. You do not have to have them in line with your clavicle. In my case, I run them lower than my clavicle. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, we want to slide this down. There's his clavicle. So what I would do if he was a customer and he's asking me the question, or I'm going to ask him the question, okay, hey, which side feels better? Do you feel a difference?
Definitely.
Which one do you like better? You're not going to hurt my feelings.
Left side.
Okay, he likes the left side better. So we're going to slide this down. Now, literally, that is with no weight on his back. And this is what is difficult for us at Kifaru and any backpack manufacturer. You get some guy that grabs someone else's pack and he throws it on with 50 pounds, tightens it up and was like, man, that felt horrible, and walks away. Well, and this goes for anyone, not just us. If I get in my wife's car and she has the seat slid forward, and I hop in her car and my feet are crammed up in my knees, I don't get out of the car and call it a piece of shit. I slide the seat back. It's not fitted for me. It is the same thing with a backpack, and this is anybody's packs, whether it's us, Stone Glacier. If the pack is not fitted, it will not work right. So now with that little adjustment, you know, he said it's more comfortable now. So with heavier weight, it would have been even better. Turn back to the side. So as we yank on this, you've got the gap. We're good. I mean, basically, he's good right there. We know the pack will fit him as good as it possibly can. We may want to tweak a few things. So now we've got it kind of halfway adjusted. We're going to throw in weight. You know, generally we have 100 pounds. Do we have 100 over there? 80. We have 80-pound sandbag at the shop. Every now and then guys will get crazy and we'll throw more weight in there. But we do 25 or 40 and we throw 80 in and we have them, you know, run around town, make sure it feels good, and they come back. At the point where he hits 80 is where we're going to find out what we may need to tweak. That could be like fine tuning. Fine tuning meaning he may come back and say, dude, this sucks now. Move it back to where it was. Or I need to try it lower. Or my load lifter angle. It's horrible. This thing sagged and all the weight was on my shoulders. So, you know, on this one, which this is fitted pretty well for you, we can loosen this load lifter and we'll hook it back up here. And now what we can do while there's either 40 or 80 pounds, You feel a difference?
Yep.
You feel a difference right there. In the case of the big tall bag, you can put one at a 40-degree load lifter angle and the other one at 20, and I can see how he feels with 80 pounds with those different angles. And then he can kind of pick from there what he wants. So what I usually suggest is when guys pack in or if guys packing out really heavy weight, they have a higher angle. When they're day hunting, since it's quick, loosen that thing up and pop it off, and then lower it down, you know, to whatever lower dimension you want that's comfortable. That way you have a little bit more of a load stabilizer day hunting, and you don't have quite as much basically slop up here. The more slop you have when the pack's empty for day hunting, it does start to suck. You don't want it doing this all the time, so you do want more of a stabilizer with lightweight. Okay, you're good to go. Thanks, man.